But yeah, hi everybody. I pressed record, by the way, just in case you missed it.
Are you gonna like you can start from
Nope.
from
Nope.
You're not gonna
no cutting,
edit the beginning part?
no editing, just raw.
I mean, even all this you're gonna keep in.
Yeah, even all this stays in.
Cool.
We're not about like production like that. Anyways, hi everybody.
Why don't I just restart? Why don't I just restart?
No, there's no point restarting. Literally, like this is the magic.
No, but
that's my friend Tom,
right?
by the way, guys. Nah. It's my friend Tom speaking. He's tried the. But hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Release. It's me, Ola. You probably heard my friend Tom speaking. This is actually like the second time I've had you on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I remember the first one was with the other podcast. I won't go into the details.
Oh man, that was a while ago. It was fun times. I think we were talking about like relationships and stuff. But how are you doing, bro?
Yeah. I'm good. Living life. As much as I can to the best of my ability.
Yeah. Introduce yourself to the folks that don't know you. Because I can introduce you, but like I don't know if I have good things to say.
Hopefully you can hear me clearly. So yeah, my name is Thomas. I am. What am I? I'm a guy, Christian guy.
Married man.
I am married recently. Well, 7 months now. 7 months married. So
I
think that's still recent. I think up until a couple of years. I don't think it's. I think maybe at least a year before I'm like no longer newly married, right? At least in my church, no one's been married since me. So I guess until someone else gets married in my church, I'll be the newly married one. Yeah, Christian guy, married. I work in consulting, and that's what I do right now. And I quite enjoy it. I somehow stumbled upon this somehow randomly.
Because you BS a lot.
I don't know if I BS.
I think a lot?
I don't know. I don't think I BS. I just. I have a way with articulating ideas, right?
Yeah,
that's what consultants do.
See, look how you just BS that into something very articulate. Nice.
Sure. And I'm drinking a chai latte right here, which was made. Oh, I guess is it video or is this audio or both?
It's both. It's both.
Okay, yeah. So chai latte, made by my wife. So, yeah.
Interesting. That's cool, man. I'll give like some context for like you can chime in case I missed details, but like for when we met, how we met. I think I kind of detailed this during the last pod that I had you on like a while ago. But we went to the same school, but went to UBC Vancouver. You were there obviously a year before me, and then I transferred in. I remember the first time I met you. Well, I didn't meet you, but the first time I saw you was outside. What's the name of that physics building? Not the physics building, but the one like opposite like IKB. Like the
you
one
mean
like
behind it? I don't remember. Behind it, right? The one that
behind
was
or beside, like
or next to it. Yeah, I know. I think I know what you're talking about.
No. Yeah. We had a class in there. Like I don't know what class we had. It was second year. And then, like, I remember you coming out and, like, typical Tom, there's a bunch of people around you and making them laugh. And all
Actually?
that kind of stuff. I was like, oh. Yeah, I literally remember. And I was like, oh, wow, it's another black guy. And I always talk to you, and I found out you're a Nigerian as well, which is cool because I was like, well, I thought it was just me. But, yeah, like, I would say that's where we first met, but that's where I first met you.
I got you.
Actually, what's your perspective? When did you first meet me?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm trying to think about it. I really don't know.
Crazy.
I remember. No. But I remember there was you and there was Ife, right?
Yeah.
And you guys were friends with Josh, right? These three guys, and I was kind of like, I kind of thought like, oh yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to get to know the black guys, but I didn't really care per se. So I didn't really, and I didn't want to, because there was only three of us, right? I think there was four of us. There was that other guy from Uganda, right? Tedewa, yeah, exactly. So I was like, there's four guys. I mean, I don't really need to Like, I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, the black guys all hang with each other. So I think I intentionally didn't pursue a relationship with you guys, but I think as I got closer to Josh, and because of how close he was to you
Yeah.
guys, it just kind of became a thing, if I remember correctly. But yeah,
I see. Yeah, and then like we started working out together. Like, what was it?
yeah,
Like when I came back to school for fourth year, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
like you, me, and Josh and Ife started hanging out more and all that kind of stuff.
Then we started the fellowship, and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so like on the fellowship thing, because I remember like for you that was something that you felt like strongly led to begin. Like how did that come about for you? When was that impression laid on your heart? Like when did you feel that was
yeah,
something that you needed to start?
yeah. So I was going to a church in Vancouver. Well, it was called Redemption Church. Yeah,
Ah, that
Redemption Church.
sounds familiar.
It was called Redemption Church in Kitsilano, and I used to go there. It was a good church. I was playing the keys. Well, you can see if you're on video, you can see my keys in the back. But yeah, I was playing the keys
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
I was playing the keys in the church. It was a good church, and there was a couple students, but the students, I don't know. I just I didn't necessarily click with them per se. It was always cool, right? But I kept feeling. I think there was a time in our Bible study in that church they were talking about soldiers for God or something like that, and I just kept feeling like I wanted to do something where I could run a fellowship where folks could just come and talk. And I'd seen most fellowships, and most fellowships were very like structured, and they had an agenda, and not an agenda. I mean, they had like a structure to it. And I
Yeah.
was like, I kind of want just an avenue where I feel like we can discuss things and help each other out. So, I heard about this church on campus, I guess, which is Origin, right?
Origin, yeah.
So I was like, let me go check it out. Oh, actually, no. Funny enough, there was a girl that I had met who was
Yeah.
going to that church. Actually, yeah, that
Do I,
was
do I
that was
know?
how I first. We don't gotta say her
Okay,
name, but
yeah, we know. I'm just asking if I know the person.
yeah, you do,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, okay,
It was
okay.
a Ghanaian girl, you know her, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So I went to the church the one time because I knew she was there. I knew we'd see her and we'd be able to talk a little bit.
yeah.
And then I was like, okay, this is like it was a student church, right? So I was like, damn, okay, this makes sense. So I think what I had been thinking in terms of like being able to reach a bunch of students and then coming to the church and seeing a bunch, I was like, okay, this might make sense, right? So
Yeah.
when I came, I saw church. I went back to my church, and then eventually I was like, okay, let me just check. So I moved to the church, and then they had this thing, I think, life groups it was called, right?
Yeah, life group, yeah.
And then I was like, okay, let me just use that avenue, kind of, right? But I didn't want it aligning with the church. I just wanted to use that as a way. So then I
As an
interestingly
avenue,
enough,
yeah.
I did the first, I set up the first day, invited a bunch of people. Nobody showed up. Right, the very
Seriously.
first time, no, but not a single person showed up.
Was I around
Yeah,
this time? Are
I
you
don't know. I don't
serious?
know. The very first time I tried it, I set a date. I think I had said no. Maybe you weren't in that first one, but the first time I did it, nobody showed up at all. And
That's crazy.
I think after a couple months after that, I was like, okay, like this is like should I not have done this? I don't know, like what's the reasoning? But then one thing I was actually interested in because Josh, a friend of ours, he's so personable and he has a way with people and connecting with people. So
Yep.
I think through him, I was able to get more people.
More
I think
people, yeah.
most of the people that joined came through him, which for me I think
Guy's an
now is a beautiful
evangelist.
lesson. It's a beautiful lesson, right? In terms of like, I had a vision or whatever I wanted, and, I maybe I didn't have the necessary skill set to actually get the people in. I had the skill set to facilitate conversations, but he had the skill set to bring people in. And
In, yeah.
that's okay. In the sense of like, that's his gifting. My gifting, it maybe isn't that. And it was cool. And then people came, and then we started with, I think it was like maybe 4 people for a little while, and then it grew to about 8. And then 10. I think at some point we had up to like 15, 16 people,
Yeah.
and then it was, I say the more common number was around 10 people consistent. And I thought it was pretty good, right? We just come in, have
Yeah.
conversations about stuff, right? And yeah, that was it. Pretty cool. So the fellowship was great. And then after COVID, we
Yeah.
kept it going virtually, right? But
Yeah. 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 I find like just on what you said there, I think that's one of the things that I've been reflecting on is, just how important it is to appreciate people's distinctiveness and how different they are in terms of
yeah.
like what they can bring. Because there's like a clip that myself and Funto had where we're talking about, and maybe not necessarily directly related to what you said there, but just expectation being the killer of relationships per se. And the expectations that you have for how people should act and be and what they should do can potentially kill fruitful relationships, and so
Yeah.
like if you just, I don't know, just appreciating the fact that people are different from
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and like celebrating those differences and allowing them to,
Well, there's always a
sound
lot
like
of
you're going
should.
to say something.
Yeah, there's always a lot of should, right? There's always a lot of like it should be easier, or this should just work. Like this is a good thing. This is what God wants to, or I believe this is what God wants to happen, so it should just happen.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of should statements can really mess up your experience in life,
What do
And
you
so
mean?
it's like oh, like again for me it could have been like oh, like this is a good thing. People should join this, but that didn't matter, right? What mattered was okay, people aren't joining. Why? Okay, I need to. I'm the kind of guy, right? If we're not really close friends, I'm not really out there
Yeah.
with you. I'm not really a people person in a sense, right? But he is,
Yeah.
and so rather than me saying, "Well, I should be able to do it myself," it's like, "Well, this guy's great. Let me connect with this guy. Let him." Even like in school, like this is just a different example, but in school, all through high school, I was always doing really good, top of the class. Right, university, I wasn't doing good first year, second year, and I'm like, man, I should be good at this because I'm a smart guy, kind of. I did
Yeah.
well in school, but until I became friends with Josh and I saw how he was studying, I was like, oh, okay, he's studying differently. There's no should. I thought if I just listened in class, I should be good, but there was a method to achieve success, right? That went beyond what I thought should have been the case. Sometimes there just is a different reality that you have to understand and accept and then play the game, right? So,
That's almost like a perfect segue. And I was even expecting things to switch gears this quick, but you and I were talking beforehand, and like in terms of what the premise of the conversation was going to be with regards to manhood, relationships, all those kind of things, and just like hearing you speak on that, because I feel as though when it comes to I think relationships, I think as well relating with the opposite sex, there's a lot of should statements. This person should be doing this, and they should be doing this, and like understanding. I like how you ended it, like there where you were talking about there's a method. Maybe talk about like that process, at least in your experience of like unlearning those shoulds when it came to like relating with your wife or the opposite sex, and then more
yeah.
so embracing the method per se.
Yeah. Well, I guess for me the context. So my current wife, and my only wife, hopefully, not hopefully, my only wife. Yeah. But we were together. We were together a little while before, and I didn't have a lot of information. And I think information is really important because the only perspective that I had on what a woman was like was my mother and my sister. One, because I don't have a lot of friends, and I didn't really have a lot of female friends, because that could be
But
a
that's a
recipe for
different
recipe for
ballgame too.
issues, right? But
It's a
but
different ball game too.
it is, yeah. But I had a lot of should let's call it the should. We had a lot of should statements in my head, or should ideas in my head, right? Because my mom and my sister like this. And also what I'm learning now, and I'll get to it now. What I'm learning now is what I thought my mom and sister were like isn't actually what they're like. I had maybe I had convinced myself of something. I had only looked at a certain part of who they were and made that all they were. So an example is for some reason I never saw any weakness in either my mom or my sister. anything even resembling, I mean, no weakness, but maybe like being timid or being a little bit like
Vulnerability.
gentle. They were always very strong and hard in my eyes, and that's all I wanted myself to see. And so when my wife and I, when we were together, she's very gentle and she's very quiet, and well, she's not quiet with me, but she's just quiet in general. And I was a little bit confused because it was nice, because I mean, I think guys like a gentle woman, so it was for me, the gentleness and the she was cool, like, so that attracted me to her. But then when we were together, I'm like, I sort of had expectations of like, come on, when we're having discourse and we're talking about ideas, I need the energy, I need the fire, I need you to like challenge my thoughts, and let's battle it out. Like, it's not about how we feel, it's about just getting the best outcome. Like all it was is about just like, things get intense. Like when you and I talk, when me and Josh talk and whatever, it's like we can get intense, but we're all working towards just getting that truth.
Yep. Understanding truth. Yeah.
In my family, that was kind of how it was, right? There was no, I never had to worry about how my brother and my sister felt about a conversation, because all we cared about was just getting to the truth. But with her, I found that a lot of times she would be quiet. She'd just say, okay. I'm like, what do you mean, okay? Like, do you agree? Do you disagree? I don't know. She would agree with me. And agreeing seems like a nice thing, but for someone like me, I like to challenge myself. I'm like, I have a thought, but I don't know if it's if it's valid thought. So I'm like, come on, challenge me. Tell me I'm right. That's good. Tell me I'm wrong. That's maybe even better, right? Like, because then it means I learned something new. But she was very quiet and cool, and it was interesting because I think I was confused. And I was like, but like, why? Like, why wouldn't you challenge me? Why wouldn't you? And it created a little bit of tension, because then I think, again, because I didn't have the information, I just was like, is something wrong here? Like, what's going on? And I think I was a little bit unkind, as a result of that, because I'm like, come on, figure it out. Like, get over it. Get over whatever you're going through. Let's just move on. And it created a lot of rift. And then we kind of split up for a little while. But when we split up, I took the time to be like, what am I missing? Because for me, it's like, every experience is an opportunity to learn something, So I started talking to women and asking them questions. I started reading the book. I read the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I read the book, watched a bunch of sermons online, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. Like, I'd always seen women that were very, either really rebellious or really timid online, but I just thought, like, that's just, those are extremes. Those are, whatever. That's not really the main. I'd never seen a difference between men and women. Right. My parents never taught me that there was a difference, because my parents didn't treat me or my sister any differently. Or at least not to my knowledge. So I didn't expect that there would be a difference in the way to relate, So eventually I did a bunch of studying, just to cut the story short. And then, when we got back together, I really had to like sort of change from should to, okay, who is she? Do you know what I mean? Because I had the should before of like, okay, she should be this, she should be that. We should have these kinds of conversations. If we both are genuine, then we shouldn't ever really be fighting. If we both care and love, we should be, even if we disagree, we should be, whatever. So there's a lot of should, but now it's like, okay, let me take a step back and just observe and get a sense of who she actually is.
That's so good, man.
And so once I move beyond the should to the what is, it's like, oh, okay, interesting. I don't know what this is. Like, I don't. And so for me, I started asking a lot more questions, and rather than that's a whole nother concept, but I'll pause there. Just
No, bro, that is so good, man. Definitely, like, for me, like, a lot of like things that I've been thinking about as well. And again, I think it goes back to that whole, like, when you go into, it's funny for me. I find it interesting how it is easier to go into relationships with the opposite sex, with women, like with the like the expectation, like there's like a prevailing expectation mindset, if I would describe it that way, versus like if I was engaging with like a random stranger on the street. I don't really have like especially when it gets into that romantic context. Like it's I don't know how to describe it. And I think as well, like with what you said there, talking about like, oh, you'd only seen your mom and your sister in a certain light. And
Yeah.
what struck me was like, I feel as though like even for me, I'm someone who grew up having a lot of female friends, just like female friends. I was like a overweight dude, so like in girls' minds, I was like a non-equation basically, right? So I would just relate with them that way,
Yeah.
right? And so you find like a woman as a friend is so different from a woman as like a romantic
For sure.
prospect partner, whatnot, right? And so what I find is like there's a I think generally for most men there's a difficulty like reconciling those two things.
Yeah.
And I don't know like I'm trying I'm trying to figure out like how to ask a question here, but like I'm just like kind of running through my thoughts, man. I don't know, man. It's just interesting. So I guess like you were talking about like you had to go through that process of unlearning and asking questions. For you, what were some of the main things that during that period of learning and like trying to understand how to relate that you what are some of the main things that kind of guided you as you progressed in relating with your now wife?
What are some of the things that I was thinking through? Like what it was like, what you mean? Like what are some things that I was
Like
trying to do
what are
differently?
some of the yes, exactly. What are you trying to do differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think in studying a lot about women and trying to find the biblical expectation, right? So the first assumption that I had was that men and women were the same in value and the same in everything else, and the same in
Yeah.
temperament, and the same in personality, and the same in everything, And the first part, I think, still holds true in terms of value. Men and women are the same,
Value,
right?
yeah.
In terms of their worth before God, that's the same. In terms of temperament, in terms of expectation, all that stuff, it's quite different. At least with I'll speak to me and my wife. It's quite different. And I think the biggest thing for me was, when I went through the studies of the biblical, like what does the Bible say about it? When I've talked about this with you before, but when the Bible talks about like, husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church.
Yeah. Church.
For me, it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Right. And so the template that, actually, question before I go on, your audience, the demographic, is it mostly men or women, or do you know, or it doesn't say?
It's mostly okay. That's a very wise question. It is about 70, somewhat over 70% women, I would say,
Okay, that's good to know.
who are
right?
in the
Okay,
age range of 20, of 21 to 25 or 27. I don't know.
okay, cool. Yeah, so for
Yeah.
me, studying the word, when the Bible talks about what a man's supposed to sort of love his wife as Christ loves the church. So you look at so Christ is the role model, right? Because you need to understand the framework through which we're supposed to operate. Like we said, what's the methodology? What's the approach, right? So if we look at Christ's life and we look at what as he relates to the bridegroom, which is the church, what did Christ do? And he did a lot that honestly, I don't know if any man can stack up against, right?
Actually, yeah.
But you talk about, his healing of the church. You talk about of the people, right? You talk about his when the disciples, when Jesus was washing their feet, and they're like, no, we should be washing your feet. He level set it with them. He said, no, I'm not above you. He says, let me do this because it's important, right? You talk about his death, dying for the church. When you start looking, okay, so this is what love is supposed to look like. And so it's a lot, I think, right? Because it said women respect your husbands. It didn't say like Christ respects God or like Christ respected whatever. Or the biggest call, the big call was to the man. And I know a lot of men see that as like, yes, I'm the boss. You got to respect me. But it really is a call to service in the way that in the way that Christ did. And any man who understands that and accepts it, because you have to understand what it means first and accept it, is a good man. And I think women need to know that, So, if you're single and you're out there and you're trying to figure out what, hey, what kind of man do I want? I think that's the first thing to look for. A man who truly understands what that verse is asking of the man in a marriage. Because unless he understands that, he will abuse the physical. Because typically the man's bigger. Typically, he's less emotional. So he might abuse that. But if he truly understands what that verse means and accepts it, that's a good man. I think women need to understand that and know that, because what then comes is, how do you treat him, right? If you have a man who's trying to take advantage of you. Because women have this instinct to fight, and it's a good instinct. It helps protect them because they want to get the best for themselves and eventually their offspring and all that stuff. So it makes sense, but you don't want to be fighting a man who's a good man. You don't want to be fighting a man who's doing what God asked him to do. You know what I mean? If a man who's trying to manipulate you, a man who's trying to mislead you, a man who's trying to take advantage of you, yes, you got to fight that. But if it's somebody who genuinely is trying to do this, who understands service and accepts that as the call, you want to honor and celebrate him, right? Because that's what's going to help fuel the relationship. So let me backtrack. So the point that I'm trying to make is, for me, once I understood that, I started change. Because I used to think, okay, now we're in a fight, or we had a disagreement and things are a little bit tense. Who's got to apologize? Who's got to be the one to play the fool? Who's got to be the one to break the tension, And I'm like, okay, why should it be me? We're equals, we're the same, And, I do feel like probably men are maybe more inclined to do that because of the temperament thing and the feelings things. But I think as a guy who's trying to serve, it's just like, all you should be focused on is the progress of the relationship, stuff like that, right? So, but it's always really tough. It's tough when you're genuine and, you're met with a little bit of like, whatever. When you're like, I'm trying to help us out here, right? But I think I'm rambling a little bit. But I think my point is, like, for me, I started to practice those things. So even when I wasn't feeling good about certain things, I just did them because I'm like, I have to do this. This is what God has called me to do. I have to, figure it out. And I think it's founded upon the word, and also just like trying now. For me, it was always like the truth. I say the truth how it is. I don't care. But you think about the fruit of the Spirit and kindness in the way I deliver it. And, the Bible talks about treating women, sort of taking care of them as the weaker vessel. I think that, for me, what I see that as, not necessarily as them being weaker, like they're less than, but it's more of like, gotta be endearing. A woman, when she feels security, when she feels loved, and when she feels like there's I guess security, when she feels safe, she's more inclined to be herself. But once she feels attacked, she's gonna fight. You know what I'm saying? And most people will, but I think women have a certain capacity in that regard. So for a guy, it's like, how do I reinforce and reassure her that I'm there for her? And because a lot of women are battling so much in terms of like, they have this innate worry about walking on the street. They have this innate worry about how they're perceived in the office. So they have this innate worry about, how they're perceived against other women, stuff like that. They have all these things that they're going through internally. I used to think when you're with me, why not be like why would you put yourself together so compose yourself really well when you're at work and all that stuff. Outside, when you're at home, sometimes you may shout at me, maybe not shout, but you may give me a certain attitude, but you don't give your friends attitude. You don't give, because for a woman, it's like when she's doing all those things, she feels like she's working. I didn't know that. You know what I mean? I'd rather give you attitude than give my wife attitude. But a woman would rather give me attitude than give her friend attitude, because for her that's work. For this is just her living, So it takes a lot of like me, not. And this is one thing that's beautiful. I said, someone said to me, don't attribute malice to what may be ignorance, indifference, a lack of information. So because you experience something that feels a type of way to you, it doesn't mean it was intended to be a bad thing. It could be occurring because that person either doesn't know, or that person is, mistaken or unaware. But we're so quick to say, well, you want to hurt me, you're trying to hurt me. It's like, probably not. Like, anyone who truly loves you isn't trying to hurt you. And so once you think through that lens, right? Most people when we have fights or disagreements, it's not because we're trying to hurt the other person. It's because one, why they're in defense mode, so we're like, okay, I need to protect myself. Or they're saying things and not even knowing that what they're saying is having that impact. So don't attribute malice to what might be ignorance, lack of information, incompetence, or whatever else, right? So I'll pause there because I've said a bunch.
Okay. Yeah, no, on that point, then maybe speak on the importance of picking your battles then, because, like some people might say things, out of ignorance, out of incompetence, but like it just hurts.
Yeah, it does hurt.
How do you know? Yeah, like how do you know when to? Like how do you know what's a mountain and what's a molehill?
Well, I think the earlier point I said was important. So, especially for ladies, like, because, one thing I saw somebody said is like, for guys in general, if a guy feels threatened or a guy feels the need to act out, especially when he's around guys, he sort of plays to his physical capacity. So voice gets raised, he's ready, his arms are squared up, For women, because they maybe don't have the physical side, their words are very, they say things a certain way, they make a face a certain way, to get to you because they can't necessarily exercise physical dominance. So the women have maybe by natural, evolution or whatever, they've found a way to, their words really, really have impact. I think a lot of women don't realize this. Talk to your girls and fight with your girls. When you're with your man, like, he feels pain. And I think a lot of women don't realize that men feel pain. The assumption is, deeply, a lot of women kind of say this thing like, oh, you know what? I love my man so much. Like, even when I'm like mean to him or when I have like an attitude, he's still there for me. That's not a brag. Do you know what I'm saying? Because all you're saying is, so all you're saying is, he takes it when I hurt him. Like, I think women assume that guys don't feel, but guys really do feel the pain.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to do the right thing and you're not you're being met with certain things, right? So I think the important thing is like for ladies, try to check yourself, like attitude and, the words you say, and like, don't assume that your husband or your boyfriend or whoever you're with is trying to hurt you, because most likely they're not. Yeah. If you feel offended, because women are more inclined, more inclined to negative emotion, right? If you feel offended at stuff, it doesn't invalidate that you felt that thing, but it's also a good habit to tell yourself, okay, well, he probably didn't mean to offend me, because if he meant to offend me, then I probably shouldn't be with him, right? So if he didn't mean to offend me, then there's a disconnect somewhere, and it might be tied to maybe you recall a certain word your whole life, and now he said that word, and now it makes you feel away. Or you felt like he was comparing himself to you, whatever the reason is, right? Don't ascribe malice to what may be just ignorance. So I think for women, it's essentially being really, really, try to be kind. Try to be, hey, I feel this way. I felt hurt by this. Just vocalize it, right? It's very tough to do, but it's important to try. Now for guys, what I would say is, in spite, and this is, again, the harder message for guys is, in spite of it, you have a responsibility to be the rock. You have a responsibility to hold it down, right? You have the responsibility to take the hits, you know what I mean? And keep just offering love, right? Keep offering love. Keep just, reassuring, because it's just what we call to, right? When Christ took a bunch of insults, I was reading, because Easter's coming up and I'm doing a poem for my church, but I was reading again the crucifixion story, and like they spat on Jesus, right? They made fun of him, they mocked him, all this stuff, and
whipped him.
All he could say was, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Like, for me, that's love. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
oof, that's so good, man.
He was treated really poorly, hopefully you don't treat your boyfriend or husband like this, right? And it goes both ways, of course, but but regardless, Christ's love for us made him endure our insult of him. The worst of insults. And nothing we can ever experience will ever compare to what God experienced. Also, I guess Christ, God, same thing, but right? So for a guy, I think the first thing is accept that no matter what, you're going to do your best to control yourself. You're going to do your best. If you have to apologize quickly, even if you still feel the pain, you still feel hurt, right? Because Jesus was in pain. Like you even talked about, like he says, I don't want to die, but not my will, but
Yeah.
yours be done. Like he didn't. I don't think he wanted to do it, but he just had to do it. You know what I'm saying? So for a guy, in spite of how you feel, you got to hold it down. Now to your question of like, how do you know when to challenge or when not to? For me, it's you have to evaluate what's the consequence of this, right? If it's something like, for example, let's say, you're I mean, it's an example, but just say your girl or she dresses indecently and she's really exposed, and you can see that the way she dresses or acts is very carnal,
Showy, ostentatious.
showy or whatever, right? Or let's say she responds a certain way to people that conveys a certain level of arrogance or whatever. It can be anything, right? And you really see a consequence to this in terms of your image as a unit, or in terms of her ability to actually progress in life for certain things. Those are things that we should bring up. The big thing is don't bring it up in the heat of the moment. That's always tough, right? It's to bring it up later and say, hey, you know what? I thought about this, right? And I think what guys need to look for, because I talk about ladies, look for a guy who understands the call that God has set for a man, or at least a husband, and find a man who actually understands and accepts it. I think for guys, look for a woman who listens, right? One woman who loves God, and a woman actually who's willing to listen, because sometimes what you find is like, a woman may not say, I agree with you, or she may not say, yes, you're right, or I disagree, but you'll see the behavior patterns. You'll see her behavior change once you speak to her. So speak with love, and then, and if it's smaller things, sometimes, so even with me, sometimes I've noticed maybe especially when, if they're hungry or they're whatever, and sometimes they say things or they feel things that, it takes time to know this, to gauge and know when it's a mood thing, when it's a hunger thing versus when it's a serious thing. Because some conversations are pretty serious. Sometimes when they're hungry, you can have pretty serious conversations that you're like, bro, this is intense for what reason? Do you know what I'm saying? So I think it takes time. That one takes time to gauge with your partner, gauge what's a hunger thing versus what's a hunger or a mood thing or an iron level thing or a tiredness thing or a period thing. Periods are another interesting one, but we just gauge it. And then the biggest thing is just remember to show love. And I think women remember that he loves you. Most guys, again, if he's a good guy, will try his best not to do the wrong thing.
Okay, let's talk about then the distinction between what love means for a man versus what love means for a woman. Because I feel as though there's some times where I felt, in previous situations where the expectation is for me to show the same level of, I don't want to say not affection, but like, I don't know how to describe it, just the same level of enthusiasm, the same level of, affection is really strong. I would say enthusiasm is the best way to convey it. Like, in terms of how when I respond, or, like when she's trying to joke and be like, like, oh, I don't know how to describe it. Like when she's just trying to joke and like test you as to like, what are you going to say? Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like what, I guess like just kind of using that to, set up the question in terms of like, what does showing love look like for a guy versus, I guess a guy, because we're men speaking here, and responding to a woman in that way.
What does showing love look like for a guy? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so it's tough. It's tough to generalize, but we have to. So for those who may not feel like they agree, it's probably because you're just not you maybe the exception, and maybe one of the exceptions. But we have to generalize, right? I think there is love, and love is different things, right? Love is, I think of, there's agape love, and there's eros love in a relationship setting, right? And both, I used to think agape was all that mattered. And eros was just like, this is kind of nice to have, like you're lucky if you get this, I mean, I don't know if eros is the correct one. Eros, so agape is the unconditional love, love of God.
Unconditional.
You know, eros is the sort of romantic,
Romantic, yeah.
sexual love. You know, and then filio is the brotherly love, family love, and then all of that
Yeah.
stuff, right? So there's both, and both exist. And as a guy, I just thought, you know, and you heard a lot of fathers back in the day say this. Well, I put food on your table. I made sure you guys all were clothed, and that was them executing their
All going to
responsibility
school.
as
Yeah.
a father, as a man. And people negate that, you know, but that is love for them, right? It is love, and that is the agape love, especially when it's tied with the Christian foundation of I try to make sure that we go to church and we pray and we study, and I also get food on the table, make sure that we're all taken care of. You know, a lot of men then and even now probably don't think so much about the other side of love, which for women is a big thing. Because sometimes it's hard for them to see the agape love without feeling the eros love. It takes going through the eros love to see the agape love
To see
sometimes.
the
Even when you know it at the back of your head, you know, I know he loves me, but I just don't feel his,
Feel it.
like you said, enthusiasm. And some women need to feel it for what they know and for it to all sync up, and then they feel this harmony. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I used to think they were exclusive until really when you look at sort of, you know, the fruit of the spirit, right? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. I really think that is it. If we can all study the fruit of the spirit, Galatians 5:23. If we can all study it and internalize it, right? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Both men and women. And we apply it to our relationships. So kindness, I think, feeds into eros, right? So I may be good, because goodness is one of the fruits of the spirit. I may be good to you, but I may not be kind in the way I say things. I may not be kind. You know, it's a little bit of that softness. A lot of guys are, you know, we want to be tough. I'll be real with you with my wife. Like I'm as soft as they come now. I wasn't always, because I didn't think it was relevant. But now I'm really soft, you know, or at least I try to be. Especially because the important thing is I want to make sure that she knows that I love her. I don't just want to love her. I love her. That's already established, at least in my head. And before me and God, I know I love her. But I need to make sure that she knows I love her and that she feels my love. Right? So all the way, I'm going to round about the point I'm trying to make is, as a guy, don't underestimate the power of kindness, of how a woman feels, because sometimes it helps her connect what she thinks. She knows you love her. Most of women know their husbands or their boyfriends love them, right? Because you see, if you're consistent as a man, if you do what you need to do, and you know they know you love them, but sometimes they want to feel it, and that means the excitement every now and then. That means the little tokens, the little gifts, the little small things, right? So one thing I do now, for example, every time I work from home, right? But every time I go to the office, every single time, I always come back with something, because we don't go out of the house. We both work from home. We're always in the house all the time. Whenever I go out of the house, I always come back, whether it's like as small as a croissant, or sometimes it's a little bit bigger. So, you know, maybe it's bubble tea. Sometimes it's this new thing that we haven't tried, because I just want to let her know that I'm thinking about you, right? Because then she's like, oh, you know what, this guy thinks about me when he's doing whatever and stuff like that. And so I think for a guy, it's, don't underestimate that, and try to think of ways that are unique to your person. You know, like if your girl loves flowers or loves plants, or she loves tea, you know, bubble tea, or she loves whatever, like think about those things that make sense for her, because then it'll help her. And then so that when you speak, she actually listens to you, because then she knows, okay, this is coming from a place of love. Otherwise, when you speak, she might feel judgment, right? Especially when what you're speaking is constructive. She may feel like she's being judged, but if you make her feel loved, then she's like, okay, this is tough to hear, but it's I know it's not because he's upset with me. I know it's not because it's because he really cares. And you'll see them to turn around, right? Now, on the flip side, for women, right? Because of course guys like nice things too, but I think, you know, reassuring a man that he's doing the right thing, reassuring him that you truly value and you respect him and
Appreciate
you
what you
want to
say.
see him succeed. I never thought that affirmation was my thing. I thought affirmation was for girls, ladies, right? But for me, and I used to be like, I
Mm,
don't care. Like, don't tell me whatever you want. I don't care as long as I'm doing what I need to do. But in marriage, affirmation is so big for me, right? You know, thank you for doing this thing. Okay, yeah, I believe in you. Or you know what? Yeah, don't I like? I don't know. I know my man's got this stuff like that. It makes me feel like a man.
mm,
Do you know what I'm saying? So again, women don't
mm,
underestimate how much like guys feel things too, and what a
mm,
guy needs, especially because when we start thinking about legacy, right? We start to think about like,
mm,
am I having impact on my, if nobody else in the world, am I having impact on my wife? You know, I mean, that's what I think
mm,
about. And eventually when I have kids, it'd be like, do my kids respect me? Do my kids see me as someone that they can come to for advice and knowledge and stuff like that? So
mm,
I think for ladies, in addition to the nice things, right? That whole idea of like wives respect your husbands, I think that just means, you know, one, listen to him, especially if what he's saying is biblical. Listen to what he's saying. And two,
mm,
show him that you see him as like someone you can trust. And what is tough usually is because a lot of ladies,
mm,
especially, have been with their parents and their dad has always been, either the dad or mom has been their sense of security, right? They provided for them, they took care of them. So now you come in and you
yeah,
want them to just hand it all over to you. It takes time, right? So guys, be patient. It
yeah,
takes time for a woman to actually say, okay, I've
mm,
disconnected from this old family and now I got to give it to you. So as a guy, you got to
mm,
be competent too, right? You can't just expect a woman, and
mm,
women are very smart. They're not gonna give to you until they have the confidence in you. So be
mm,
competent as a man, and then as a lady, if you see a man who's genuinely trying, like give him the encouragement that, all right, I'm with you. Even if you may not feel it yet 100%, but you see that he's making those strides. I would say like give him that reassurance.
I'm honestly just like listening and taking mental notes because this is so good, man. Like, this is really good. I guess. Well, I mean, it's been a lot of advice. I was gonna because I don't want to keep this too long.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm trying to think here. Okay, so before I kind of close off the conversation, I just want to speak or I guess ask about like what does just the maybe you can speak on the importance of humility for a man and like what that means for a dude, especially given the fact that we wrestle with the fact that we have egos, right? And like pride is just something that's maybe we have a natural inclination, towards. Let's speak on humility because I feel like that's a big thing for men.
Well, maybe if you can give me an example of what you think of as like an ego, a time where ego is showing up. Like, what have you felt, maybe, or what have you heard? Because I have a certain thought but I want to see if maybe what I'm thinking is different.
I see.
Like, what do you think? What do you think men are wrestling with respect to humility?
I feel as though just well, I don't want to make a generalization, but I guess speaking from previous experience is I don't know, just being willing to okay, actually I'll phrase it in this way. I think most reasonable men want to be with a woman who is intelligent, wants to be with the woman who is self-possessed, well thought, like thinks well. What I've seen in recent previous experiences, it's almost like my ego is challenged when like it's almost like you've met your match kind of thing, and willing
Okay.
to like put yourself under, to like allow her to like flourish and be the intelligent woman that she is. you know to me, like there's a tension there because you're like, I don't know, like for me personally, I'm someone who's like I try to be very knowledgeable on very different things and so it's almost like you feel threatened per se. It's also probably a very insecure position, I will say on my part,
Interesting.
but you feel threatened in a way where it's like, oh wow, like I've kind of met my match. Like this woman is talking the
Interesting.
talk and she's really intelligent, right?
Interesting.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting one. What I'll say is this. Maybe firstly, I don't know if I agree with the sentiment that men have bigger egos than women. From my experience, that's not the
I don't agree
case.
as well. I don't
It's
agree
just
as well.
I think it's just expressed differently, right? I
The
think
way
men and women
I
have.
perceive it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say the way I perceive it is I believe this is my understanding. I believe men have more fragile egos. I think women have bigger egos, but men just have more fragile egos.
Okay, I like that. I can see that. I think it's interesting. Yeah, yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that. I like that phrasing. Yeah, I do think women's egos are quite big. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I like that. So yeah, I think we're aligned then probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think egos is an interesting thing. I think for me, the first thing, and I only really like to speak about it in the context of marriage because everything else is, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not in the
Gray
Bible for me.
area.
You know what I'm saying? For me, the Bible talks about
Yeah.
marriage. And for me, that's the only
Yeah.
framework where I see, okay, there's a covenant, right? For me, there's a covenant in
Yeah.
marriage. And it completely makes everything else different from it. Relationships are similar in a lot of ways, but it's not the same as a marriage, right? Because now you become one. And so as a man, you desire a woman who's intelligent, you desire a woman who's these things. And now she's intelligent and she's capable and she's competent. And now you're thinking, man, do I stack up? Like, can I really lead this woman? Can I really, you know, it's a little bit of a flawed mentality because, as a man, your position as a leader, if you believe in that thing, and if you're a Christian, you likely do, right? Isn't to be in front necessarily, isn't to be the one who drives every initiative necessarily. Your responsibility is to ensure that your unit, your family gets to where God intends for you. And sometimes you need to recognize if this person has a certain skill set that is going to help us succeed in this moment. You need to find a way to not see it as her success over mine. It's, yeah, we both benefit from this, and fuel her, especially if she's competent, she's capable, and she has the resources that she needs. Your job as a man is to say, okay, this is good. I'm going to fuel her interest. I'm going to support her, whether that's financially or just time or energy or whatever it is to help her, because in the end, it benefits the unit. Your job is to ensure that the whole unit succeeds. Myself in my work as a manager, I typically set the direction, but I don't always set the direction. Right? I find specific people on my team. If I have a designer or a developer, I'm like, okay, well, you know a lot more than I do. Right? A designer or data engineer that I work with knows a lot more about data engineering than I do. A designer or developer knows more about what I do is say, okay, you're really great here, you're really great here, you're really great here. Let's come together and let's all make this thing happen, because the overall outcome is to create this dashboard, a data pipeline. But my point is, as a man, when you identify those strengths in your woman, it's like to celebrate her and encourage her and give her the resources that she needs to be able to do that, because it's our success. And again, this is in the context of marriage, right? And then you say, okay, do I have a separate initiative, or is there maybe a way that my initiative sort of aligns with this? Can we do this together? And then you guys partner up and make it happen. That's how I would see it. The big thing though is, I think the pride thing is tough, because as long as you see yourselves as two individuals, and you'll always have that worry. But if you see yourself as a team, and you're committed to the success of the overall unit, it works out. For women on the other side, I think it's not belittling the man because of that, especially when he's supportive. You know, if all he does is stifle you and hold you back, there's nuance to have a conversation about that. You know, I know of a lady actually here in Canada. So she and her husband came from Nigeria, and I think when she came here, she said, "Hey, I want to be a lawyer." And, you know, typically when you come from Nigeria, you have to go through the whole recertification process and do the articling and all that stuff. And he was like, "No, you don't need to do all that," you know. But she really wanted to do it. And then, you know, I think he was still trying to figure out what he was going to do as a man. And eventually, when he saw how much money she could be making as a lawyer, he's like, "Okay, let's do this." So now he's helping her out, creating the time for her, you know, to be able to do, go through her schooling and do all the exams to be able to actually become a lawyer. Now she's a lawyer now, and I think she's working towards making the money that she could be making to them. And he's supportive, you know, a little bit of a selfish thing in terms of like, okay, he was holding it back, but you know, I think that the important thing is, as a woman, if you feel like you're being held back, which ideally you're not, but if you feel that, there's wisdom into how to have a conversation. And as a man, if you're feeling disrespected, or you're feeling like you're being challenged, or you're feeling like you're being, you know, the first thing is ask yourself, am I actually not that competent? And if you're not, step your game up. Because as a good man, you got to be competent. Yeah. Oh, do you see that? Yeah. It's like, as a good man, you got to be competent.
Oh, yeah.
It just popped up when I did that. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
As a good man, you have to be competent. So I think if you're lacking a certain way, become competent in that thing, or defer to her if she's just more competent than you. That's fine. And then if you are competent and she's just treating you a certain way, find a way with wisdom to have a conversation. Hey, when you say this, when you behave this way, it makes me feel this way. Like, what can we do to better understand each other? What can we do to make sure that you're getting what you need and I'm getting what I need? And just do that with love and with honesty. And honestly, the whole idea of, I think it was someone in Prosper talks about like a gentle speech, like a gentle voice, a softness just makes things better. You know, sometimes we want to go on guns blazing, but always think about the outcome. What comes out of me being angry? What comes out of me shouting? What comes out of me giving attitude and doing silent treatment? What comes out of me going to my room and not do, you know, like what comes out of it? If nothing comes out of it and you think critically about it, then you just, okay, what can I do differently? Let me try a gentle approach, a little bit of a conversation, a little bit of an activity that can help us talk it through. One thing my wife and I have been doing recently is normally during dinner, we put on something on Netflix and, or Prime or whatever. I don't want to, I'm not advertising, I guess, but, but I put on something on whatever, right? And we just watch that and we watch, you know, until we get tired and we go to sleep. But one thing we've been doing recently is dinner time, we don't watch TV and we just talk. And we've had so many beautiful conversations that I'm just like, we've been together for a couple number of years now, but we just never had these kinds of conversations this regularly. So I'm getting her ideas on so many things, and it's just so refreshing. So finding opportunities and little ways to just talk, you know, rather than whatever else. But yeah, that's my thinking. You know, pride is just not worth it. Anger is just not worth it. Attitude is just not worth it. That's the summary.
It's really not, man.
It's just not worth it, right? Always think about the outcome. What comes out of me behaving this way? Is it productive or not?
Dang. Man, this is so good. I'm going to listen to all this stuff back because this is... Bruh, man, this is so... you know, like I always call you like when I have issues or whatnot, because I don't know. Like I just see you as such a trusted resource when it comes to these kind of things. And you speak very well about these things. But I want to say thanks for coming on, bro. Really appreciate it. We're like hitting the hour mark, which is typical, honestly. Our episodes are typically this long. But for anyone who's listened this far, I hope you've taken something of value. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
No, it was great conversation. I appreciate you having me on. I would just say, think about things biblically, you know, especially today when a lot of things are on, you know, the social media, and even the Christian outlets on social media may not necessarily be accurate, you know. Find people that are, you know, but think about things biblically and always check yourself. What's the Bible asking me to do? And if you don't know, talk to people that you actually respect and trust, and, you know, but the Bible is as a Christian, at least. If you're not a Christian, you know, figure yourself out. But I'll recommend this. But, you know, but if you are a Christian, you know, the Bible it has a lot that helps us think through things the way Christ would, right?
Thanks, bro. Where can the people find you, man? Anyone wants to top you up and ask for
I'm
some
not really.
questions?
I'm not really out there. But I mean, of course, you can talk to Alan and he can reach out to me. Or, I mean, I'm not really on social media. Like, I'm not a talker, right? I do music, so you can see I'm a music guy. So, eventually I'll start putting out some music. But yeah, Sir Tom is my name. But
when's the first single coming out?
Hopefully, I don't want to say all right. Well, hopefully this year. I mean, we'll get some songs coming out.
Okay.
So now you guys can hold me accountable to it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just want to put you on the spot. Well, thanks, bro. I appreciate you coming on, man. This is a good conversation. Also, this is the last episode of Release for a month. We're taking a break. We'll be back. More episodes, more value and whatnot. But I hope you guys have enjoyed everything so far this year. It's been we're figuring things out. Like, this is very new, having people on and trying to figure out things. But hope you've enjoyed it so far. God bless y'all. I don't know, read your Bible, pray, talk to Jesus. He loves you. All right. Peace.
All right. Talk to you later.